Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my video. Just want to give you guys, um, just want to make a video about what happened to me about a couple days ago in my car, and got it fixed since. But I had a no crank, no start issue with my car. Basically, the car worked fine all day. I drove it pretty much all day, back and forth, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I stopped at a Arby's. I stopped at an Arby's to get some food, and pretty much ate there. Got back out and was all ready to go back home, and the car um, did not crank up, did not start. So anyway, the remote worked. Got into the car. Everything came on as normal. The dash lights, radio, everything that was supposed to worked. And but it wouldn't crank up. It wouldn't crank. It wouldn't start up. It wouldn't crank, obviously. So at that point, I was kind of, I tried it at least 4 or 5 times to try to get it to crank, but all I heard was like a click on each try. So basically, what I did was I got out, turned on the headlights, got out, and try to see whether the headlights were bright or not. Just to try to make out whether the batteries were good. And the battery was changed up maybe like 5 months ago. So I was thinking it could be the battery. Maybe it was put in. Maybe the terminal's loose or something like that. But I mean, the lights were pretty bright, so I couldn't make anything of it. So what I did was I popped. I got to the battery. And pretty much, I got to the battery and checked the terminals to make sure that the terminals weren't corroded or anything like that. But the terminals did look a little bit corroded. And what I did was I actually had some Coke, poured some Coke over it, fizzed it up, and I was able to wiggle it out. It wasn't loose. The terminals weren't loose or anything like that. I wiggled it out, took some paper towel, cleaned it up, popped them back on, and I cleaned it up pretty good, and tried to start it, and that didn't work out. It did the same thing. So at that point, I was looking at the ground wire, because I was scratching my head trying to figure out what the problem was, and checked out the ground wire and checked to see whether the ground wire was corroded, whether it was broken off from the frame. But the ground wire looked fine. There was a little bit of rust on it, but it looked fine. So I had no issues with the ground wire, and had no issues with that. But just to be sure that it wasn't the battery, what I did was I got a power pack that I bought from Walmart, and popped that on. It was at 75% capacity, but I turned that on and tried to turn on the car. Had the same situation. It still would not crank, would not turn on. And at that point, I could rule out a whole bunch of stuff. I could rule out the battery, 100% ruled out the battery, ruled out the ground wire, and pretty much ruled out the alternator, because I thought maybe the alternator went out and it wasn't charging the battery correctly, and got into the situation where it wouldn't crank. But I really didn't think it was the alternator, considering considering the headlights were pretty bright. The battery probably had, at the very worst, had enough juice to bright up to. So I mean, I would have heard like some kind of slow crank if it was just a bad battery, but it wasn't a bad battery. It wasn't the alternator. I ruled all that stuff out. So after that, I was really confused as to what the problem was. And I remember the brake switch was one of the things that I knew that the brake switch having issues with the brake switch could cause a car not to start. So what I did was I had this kind of, you guys know what the club is, but it's for the brake pedal. So I actually took the club, extended it to my seat, and had the brakes depressed, and went out and to check the brake lights, and the brake lights were pretty, the brake lights came on. So if the brake lights didn't come on, then I could have probably, I could have probably deduced that it might have been the brake switch. But at that point, I was thinking to myself, all right, so I could rule all those things out. As far, it could have been a key fob too, but I changed up the battery on the key fob like 8 months ago, and I ruled that out. So at that point, I was like, okay, there's only a couple of things it could be, considering it's not cranking, it's not starting. I looked at the dash. There was no check engine light on the dash, but I took my OBD2 reader, popped it in, and ran it just to make sure that there was no issues with the car's computer, because I knew that it wasn't going to pick up any kind of codes, and very few times a code will pop up for a situation like this, where it's a no crank, no start situation. And it ran all the way through. There were no codes. That pretty much told me that the car's computer is connected to the car itself, and that was the only reason why I did that, to check that out. So at that point, I was thinking to myself, there's only a couple things else that it could be. It's either the fuse, or a relay, or the starter. But I didn't think it was the starter, because that starter was changed out about a year ago. But anyway, I actually got to the fuse box, checked out the fuses, and the fuses, I was trying to see the top of the fuses, see if I saw any fuses that were blown, brownish, whether there was any kind of burnt smell coming from the fuse box. But I looked at all of them, and there wasn't any. I didn't have a fuse tester on me, but I didn't see any of them that were actually blown. So I recalled there were at least a couple of times where a fuse caused. I've had incidents where, not this car, but vehicles that I've had, where it caused the car not to start. Now, one of those situations was I actually had I believe the fuse to the ECU was blown, and what happened was the car would crank, but it wouldn't turn over, because there was it was either to the ECU to the car's fuel pump. And once I changed that out, it worked after that. But this is not the same situation I was at the point, because the car wasn't cranking at all. The other time I had a fuse issue where it caused the car not to start was, I believe it was on a Honda Accord, where I was getting no power at all to any portion of the car. It was as if the battery was absolutely 100% disconnected, and it did turn out to be a fuse, but it was the main fuse on the car, where inside that fuse box, the main fuse that connected the battery to the fuse box itself was blown. And once I changed that up, that actually got it to start without any problem whatsoever. So basically, I was left with a couple of things. I was left with either the relay, one of the relays, particularly the starter relay, or the starter itself. And I was thinking to myself, the starter was changed out a year ago. There's a possibility that the starter could have gone out, because I actually bought a rebuilt starter for it, and starter was 100% warranted for a lifetime warranty, but it was a rebuilt starter. I've had situations where a rebuilt starter, if you guys know anything about rebuilt starters, they actually literally rebuild the starter. You give them the core, and then they changed up certain parts. And I don't know. I've heard that they changed up just the parts that are broken and leave the other parts that in there. But I was crossing my fingers that it wasn't a starter, because it would have been really a real pain if it was. But moving on to my to what the real fix was on the car. It was okay. So I did the fuses. Wasn't 100% on the fuses, but they looked all clean to me. And got to the relays themselves, and I was looking at the relays, and I was thinking to myself, I was hearing a click. So normally when you hear a click, that means that the relay is firing off. For the most part, a lot of times when you hear a click, and every time you try to start your car and it's not turning, it's not cranking, you hear a click, normally it's the relay that you're hearing. But I looked at the relay, popped it out, the starter relay, and I was looking at it just to see whether there was any kind of corrosion on there or anything that could have caused it to have issues and stuff like that. And couldn't see anything, couldn't see any issues with it. And I was trying to listen to the relay when I tried to start it, and what it did was it did the same thing. I heard it. It clicked. So I didn't think it was the relay, but I was thinking to myself, probably should change up the relay, see if there's another relay in the box, and which is what I did. I took another relay that had pretty much the same voltage. It was just a similar relay. Popped it into the starter relay, took the starter relay out, the old one, popped it in, and then got back in and tried to start it, and the car started up just like that, start up fine. At that point, I knew that it was the relay that was causing the car not to start. Even though it was firing off, I think it was malfunctioning or something like that. Normally, with my experiences, when a relay is causing the issue, normally the relay is just 100% dead. You wouldn't hear anything firing off on it, but it did fire off. So so what I did was I drove it to AutoZone. Bought another relay, popped it in, and it's been 3 days. Haven't had a single issue since. At all. I haven't had a single issue since at all, and I'm pretty glad that it wasn't the starter, because between just popping out a relay and popping it in versus changing out a starter, I really am glad that it wasn't a starter. In any case, if you guys are still watching this, I hope that this has helped you guys out. If you guys are having a no crank, no start situation, just pretty much just follow the steps that I went through, as far as going through the list of things that I went through, as far as the battery, the ground wire, the fuses, the relay, the alternator starters. It's gotta be the fob key. Chances are it's gonna be like one of those things. Chances are it's probably gonna be one of those things. Hopefully it's something that is easy to fix, as it was for me. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have a comment, please leave a comment in the comment section. Please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. All right, guys, take care.